For recording.
I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of June 22nd at 7 p.m. This will be a web-based meeting. First on our agenda is our business meeting, and I'd like to see Rob Stoll for Rich Tibbetts. If everyone's had an opportunity to read the meeting minutes, if I may have a motion, please.
So moved. I move that we accept the meeting.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Meeting minute.
None? I'm sorry? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. I now need a motion to add Mr. O'Halloran to our agenda.
I'll move.
Make the motion to add Bill Halloran to our agenda under our, at the beginning of our work session.
Second.
Thank you both, Bob and Penny. All right, Beth, Mr. O'Halloran is on the agenda. How would you like to proceed? You're muted, Beth. Beth, you're muted. Okay.
Got it. Okay, I would ask for Bill to proceed with his discussion. He wished to have a discussion with you this evening. I would also note for the record that his correspondence with me, I did put it in the drive for all of you too. Bill?
Okay, thank you, Beth. Thank you. Appreciate the commission letting me speak with you tonight. First off, I'm the president of the Summit Homeowners Association. In a very limited sense, I guess I'm speaking for about 187 Bethel families tonight. We're in the process of taking over the association's physical, the physical boundaries and physical property from Toll Brothers. It's a long process. We've had some issues and problems with it. I'd like to mention that a lot of people think of us as this outside organization or group. There's a lot of us that are longtime Bethel residents. There's people up here that are former members of the police commission, the library board, principals, teachers, school staff, doctors, nurses, have been around for a very long time. I've known Beth for longer than probably either of us care to admit. I've been Bethel resident
You forgot
since
to mention
74.
softball coaches.
Yes, Beth helped me quite a lot, bringing my daughter along through softball for, I don't know, 6-8 years at least. I was a coach in the Bethel Softball Association a long time ago. And while there are a lot of people who are new to Bethel, there's quite a number of people living up here who are longtime Bethel residents. So we appreciate all that this commission has done. And we know that you represent the whole town of Bethel, but we feel that we need representation also from the commission. What we're asking for at this point in time, very specifically, is that we've been forced to hire engineers to deal with Toll Brothers. The process is called a deficiency study or a transition study. And the requirement is that we need a complete set of the municipally approved site plans. And there's a problem with the site plans that are available from the land use office. That the site plans that Beth was able to give me did not seem to be up to date. She was kind enough to provide what she did have. We took them down to Bethel Printing, had them scanned. They seem to be, the latest date was, it's in the document I gave you.
2011.
2011. There's been significant changes since then. The engineers we've hired at a cost of about $30,000 to all of us. They need to go over the site plans. They need to deal on our behalf with Toll. And we need the up-to-date plans. There's no copy of the landscape plans. There's no copy of the lighting plan. There's no copy of what is very important to us, the retaining wall details. I understand the retaining walls themselves are permitted in the building department. We have to go there and pull those permits. But the retaining wall details are missing. The slope treatment details are missing. There's a large number of pieces that are identified on the face sheet of the site plans that just are not there. And in addition, there's a lot of pieces that have been moved around on those site plans that appear to have not been updated in any form. I mean, a lot of the units have bounced around quite a bit, almost like houses on a monopoly board, without some of the grading plans ever changing. Beth's aware, she came up and helped us a little bit. There's one particular area we're very concerned with. There's a very steep slope full of weeds that is in the middle between housing units that Toll and myself have been going back and forth for well over a year. It is far beyond a 2-to-1 slope. They've refused to give us their plans when we've asked for the elevations. The elevations that were approved for this development way back, I mean, I'm going back to 2006. It had a full retaining wall back there. Now it has a very minor retaining wall behind about a 3-unit building. It needs something significantly more than that. Beth gave Toll a memorandum, I guess you'd call it, Beth, saying that they need to either deal with the homeowners association on some sort of an agreed upon plan or meet the building regulation, the zoning regulations that you folks have. I have a meeting with them Thursday. They've presented us with a number of little drawings, far from engineered specs, far from giving us any elevations. It is about 150 feet long, and it is a grade of at least 20 to 25 feet high. The setback appears to be less than 10 feet. So it is far from a 2-to-1 grade. We don't want to be in the position of trying to enforce planning and zoning regulations. We're most likely going to reject their offer, and we're going to ask the zoning enforcement officer. Is that you, Beth? Is that one of your
Yes, it
many
is.
hats? Okay.
Yes.
We're going to ask, I mean, we're going to meet with them Thursday morning, but unless they come through with something they've never done in the past, we're going to tell them we're not going to play their games of moving rocks around to avoid the cost of engineering a wall. It should have been there from the beginning. I firmly believe the town has been remiss in this location, in this development. That slope has been there for 8-10 years without any plan for a wall. We're going to tell them they need to make the 2-to-1 grade. Don't deal with us, deal with the town. So that's the kind of problems we're facing, but really we need the documentation. We've asked town for it. Beth has explained the problem. She's given me what she has. We have the as-built for the water and sewer that they exist. The town has taken them over. Our roads are in terrible shape. They're not top coated yet. I think the town is going to be in trouble with the condition of those roads. Once they've been driving heavy equipment over them for over a dozen years. I just hope they do right, and do it the right way. There's no, we have very little expectation that they will, but that's, I guess, from what Beth tells me, between us and Toll, because the town apparently does no final inspection on the roads. Anyway, we're asking for the up-to-date drawings and specs that the town really should have. Those should be town documentation. That Toll has put us off. They've either said they don't have them, get them from the town. We'll get them for you eventually. It's a stalling tactic at this point. I believe the town has the ability to demand those drawings from the Toll brothers, and then we would get them from you. If they're missing in the town's records. There should be public records. One other thing I'd like to bring up, and that is a problem we had up here with a resident wanting to do tree trimming in on the perimeter. I know that is a touching point I've heard. In fact, every time I talked to Beth, when we first ran into each other after a number of years, that was brought up. We changed our own local landscape rules. Beth told me that we were not allowed to do vista pruning. I don't know what the right phrase is, but there was significant restrictions on what we could do with our own property. And we took Beth at her word. We had no problem with that. And we changed the landscape rules for our development. We told homeowners that in our documentation is called the master property. No homeowner can change anything in the master. And if we're talking about tree trimming that impacted anything beyond the small areas on the fences that did not show anyplace else, we would go to the town first and get permission. And if we didn't get permission, we would never do it. That caused quite a bit of controversy up here when we turned somebody down. Beth sent a note when we approached what we thought was the tree warden. Apparently that's an empty position now. Beth wrote a note back saying that they were not allowed to do that, and we turned the request down. We would like some documentation that shows where those restrictions exist. We're certainly willing to be good citizens and follow any restrictions that do exist as far as that goes, but we need something in writing. The particular people threatened to bring a suit against us. I don't know if they threatened you folks too. It turned out not to happen, but we would like something we could point to very specifically that says we can't trim what is our own trees. I mean, it's our property, but if there's really restrictions, all well and good. We're more than willing to follow those restrictions. We'd like to know what they are. And that's all I really have to say. I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. O'Halloran. Beth, how do you want to deal with this? Because I know every time we had changes, we had plans in front of us. Is there documentation that right now it doesn't appear to be in town hall or maybe misplaced?
I would say that if there's documentation missing, it will have, as far as town hall, it's probably misplaced. Bill has brought up numerous different questions. I do believe that an easy way to resolve his search for documentation is to as the town and as the Planning and Zoning Commission, tell Toll this is what you want. We receive the information and then it is given to the homeowners association or copies of. I think that's the easiest way to answer a lot of Bill's questions in regards to some of the documentation he's looking for in order to have a good closeout with the builder. Am I correct, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, Toll has it. We know they have it. They have it in electronic format. They've told us a couple of times, oh yeah, you can have it. We're just updating it. And that was months and months ago. When we show up, put them on the spot for a particular complaint that they want to deal with, they'll show up with an 8.5 by 11 print that they have.
As far as the property in general, one thing I would mention is that several months ago, Toll asked for us to vest the property. And you all as a commission agreed to do that. I would tell you as staff, I did not pursue that at this time. And it was due to one of the main issues in my mind was the unresolved hill that was located in one area of the development due to all the changes and manipulation of units and where they were going and things like that. Another reason is also the one or two areas of the project where the condition of the road is in compared to the overall project. I did go up there. I don't know if I mentioned to you, Bill, I did go up there with Bob Dibble, our highway superintendent.
No, he
just
did
to have a
not.
look, see, and just get some, experienced eyes to look at it. And again, I believe that these are all things that can be resolved with
Yeah.
Toll Brothers. But I think that what the homeowners association is asking for is help. I think that, I can certainly put something together on behalf of the commission. Actually, it would be the commission that would be doing this, not, with me doing it as staff, to help them along those lines. As far as the tree restriction, the vista pruning, it's called.
Is that really the right phrase?
That's the phrase that was used by the property owner.
No, by the property owner, yeah. Well, he's.
Okay, not by you all. I don't know how the commission would like to handle this. I would tell you that in working with Toll over the years when they were building this project, we had an agreement after one incident that if a tree is a health or safety issue, meaning there's danger to the building, the very obvious thing, the tree is dead, it's going to fall on the building. They have every right to go in and cut a tree down. Okay. As far as the approval itself, stating you cannot cut a tree, it doesn't say that in the approval. You have to go by the PRD regulations, where it was very definitively shown on the, even if it's the 15th version of the site plan, on the original site plan, where the open space areas are. Because remember, there's a hefty open space requirement with this development. And anything that is outside of, I think it's the black fence
The black fence is the demarc.
is the demarcation, and everything else is considered open space, but it's all part of the regulation.
And we don't want to clear land in any sense either. It's not that it's called the Master Association controls that land. And we have no desire to go doing any of that either. We're looking for backup documentation to continue
Right.
saying no to the few people who think they want to keep topping trees so that they can continue to look out. That there's some sense that they're entitled to keep the view that they feel they paid for. We have disagreements up here how far that should go. There is no feeling that anybody wants to expand any clearing. There is some feeling that people felt they bought a view and are entitled to keep topping trees as they grow. Trying to phrase this carefully. And so far, the master board is pretty strong in the sense that we say no to that also.
I defer, if any of the commission members have anything they wish to say about that particular situation before I give you a recommendation.
My personal opinion is you could end up in just a huge mess if people are out there pruning trees as they see fit. Are any of these trees along the ridge line?
It doesn't matter. I believe it doesn't matter where the trees are,
Yeah.
whether they're on the ridge line looking at the police station or looking at Worcester Street.
I think you could end up with a horrible mess if people just go out there individually and start
Oh,
pruning trees.
We've made it very clear that behind that's the master property line, what Beth described as the black fence. There's a fence line of some sort. We've made it very clear that no owner is allowed to go beyond that fence line, and they will be fined if they do. And that did happen in the past, when Toll was in charge. And because of those occurrences, I can't say we wouldn't get a rogue owner who would try to do it, but it's been made very clear that no one is allowed to do that on their own. That is master property. That's not an individual has any right to do that. And they will be fined if they ever try to do that again. So that part's taken care of. But the process that was developed was that they have the right to request changes on the other side of the fence. And a lot of it is brush and things grow up next to the retaining walls and things like that. And that needs to be clear. You know, we're staying out of the wetlands. We're not going down
Well, it
near
needs
the
to be
tree
maintained.
line, but we need to do some maintenance.
Yes, you have to do maintenance. Absolutely.
So it's a balancing act. But there's no intent to expand into what is natural areas. We do not want to maintain natural areas. We want to just let them be natural. That's their purpose in life.
That's a couple of questions I have.
Sure.
Do we still hold any bonds on any of this stuff that we're discussing
we
here
do.
tonight?
Not enough.
In the amount of how much?
I know it's under 100,000, I believe.
Which, should give us a little bit of leverage to get told to,
Mhm.
Submit what Bill needs.
As far as the roads and the existing grading and things of that nature that have to be done, Toll, I do not have any indication from Toll that it will not be completed.
That's not actually, even the access road going up there by the shack, the guard shack coming in. That's not considered a town road, though. It's a driveway, right?
They're all they are private roads.
Private roads.
Right. So do we get an as-built on that?
As part of the, when
Other than
Bill was
just the
speaking,
drainage.
when Bill was speaking in regards to the as-built of the sewer and water, technically they are as-built also of the roads as they've been completed.
So the top coat is actually there?
No, it's not there.
So
No,
it's not
they
there
don't
yet.
they don't show the top coat. They show the actual configuration of the roads, where catch basins are, and things of that nature. When a project is also completed, you receive a sign off from an engineer on the drainage and the retention areas. Also, as far as the retaining walls and things like that that are built, it's done through the building department, but they also receive a structural engineer sign off stating that the wall was built accordingly.
Paul's very careful we have a significant number of walls that magically are 3 feet, 11.5 inches tall, because they do not have to be
Right.
engineered.
They don't have to be permitted, I believe, through building or
4
engineer.
feet, above 4 feet has to
4
be
feet
engineered.
above, yeah,
So magically, there's a large number of just
3.5
under
meters.
4 feet walls.
okay. So, as far as coming to some conclusions, or if you have any other questions as commission members,
Beth, I want to talk about the trees a little bit.
okay,
I want to go back in history. So the commission years ago, when we originally approved this application, we made a mistake, and we didn't realize that literally buildings were going to be on top of the ridge. We thought we were protecting the ridge. So when we finally realized that the foundations were going to be seen from all of Bethel and Danbury, that's when we started playing the tree game and shifting some buildings around. So I think as a commission, we need to be really, really clear that we don't want any trees taken out in the open space area. We don't want to hear that we're going to take trees down because they're near a retaining wall. We want it to grow back as much as it can because we're trying to protect the ridge. We do realize that some Bethel residents bought a view, okay, but the view wasn't accepted by everybody, and that's why the commission tried to do the best thing that they possibly could do after the ball already started rolling with the applicant and the project up there. So it needs to be really, really clear that maintenance should not be, brought up. I'm sorry, tree removal should not be called maintenance and start clear cutting the ridge line.
I have I'm an elected like you are. So this person totally agrees with what you just said. And the present board makeup strongly agrees with what you just said. I don't think you'll have a problem. There are vociferous disagreements from individual owners
Okay.
that we are continually battling.
Gotcha. And for the commissioners that are new to the commission, after the project was already started, the tree ninjas came out on the weekend and they took down big trees and they opened up the view for all of those people on the ridge. That's why the commission tried to take the stance that we're not going to take any more trees out. And that was an agreement, and maybe between Toll Brothers and the town of Bethel, and maybe Beth needs to scratch and find that agreement so you could clearly go to those people that are trying to bring the tree ninjas back in and say, this is why we can't take trees down this weekend. Okay? I just want to play it all out so
Yeah, yeah.
everybody knows how we got to the conversation today.
Moved one whole building up there. One whole building was actually moved out of where it was supposed to be
Absolutely.
by the water tank
Right.
in order to
Okay,
Right.
So it was a combination of moving buildings and trying to protect the natural buffer on the ridge line. And that's when all of and Toll Brothers, I remember, was great
They were.
about making those recommendations or making those changes. If they sold the homeowners up there, a different story. That's between Toll Brothers and the homeowners, not the homeowners and the town of Bethel.
At the same time, Toll Brothers has never given up one single building unit. Let's.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, but they moved the units. So, but
Sure they did.
they sold
But
the
they still
units.
sold just as many to sell. We're fine.
Absolutely. But they
We're
sold a
sing-
different view, but they
Right.
sold a different view.
Right. We're singing the same tune here. I have no problem with what you're suggesting. We have turned down a few owners so far who wanted to prune trees for their view and told them, you did not buy a view. You bought a unit.
Some of them.
If someone told you that that view was going to stay immutably the same, find them and sue them, because trees grow and they're not being cut down.
Right. And the last thing that I want to say is a condominium association, you have common areas. One particular unit owner doesn't have the right to manipulate the
Absolutely.
outside appearance of their unit. The
Absolutely.
board has that right. So a homeowner can't go and hire a tree guy. It's the
Absolutely.
board that controls the common area.
Good
And we
point,
made that
John.
very clear.
Beth, what are we actually looking for? You want the backing of the commission to get in touch with Toll and get them to resolve this issue?
yes,
And to get all the different plans, right?
just.
You want updated
Basically,
site plans?
it's just like, basically give him the documentation that he's looking for. That's it.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Can we
I-
put a timeline on that, when they have to have it available and turn it
I
over
would
to the
say,
Bill
yes,
Howard?
I agree.
I
Okay.
can
Good
go
idea.
along with that.
And
I go
probably
along
not to
with
come in
it.
with a bond reduction.
We already know that. Okay,
Beth, what's a reasonable amount of time?
I want a response within 30 days.
Okay,
Sounds reasonable.
Do we need to come to a consensus on this or anything, Beth?
I would just come to a consensus that, per our discussion, Pat has requested staff to get in contact with Toll to resolve what issues can be done. And
Okay.
Pat will review whatever I send him. How's that?
Yep.
Oh, perfect.
and we're all in agreement, correct?
I'm in agreement. Beth,
Got it.
I'm in agreement. By the same token, I think we need to lend our clout to the issue too. And in any discussions with Toll, tell them that, the zoning board is backing, that this should all happen before any physical turnover of the whole operation up there to the homeowners association.
Good idea, Bob.
It's already turned over, isn't it, Bill?
It is technically turned over. The board has been turned over to us. Toll is no longer
Okay,
controls the board.
okay,
And there's a legal time frame that we have to settle this with them. Yeah,
okay.
we're in the transition period, it's called.
So you said 30 days would be more than enough.
I'm sorry, couldn't I?
Beth, can I say? ask
Kitty,
one more
Kitty,
question?
wait, Kitty just had a question. She wanna know if the 30 days was enough time.
No. If I had my daughters, it'd be a couple weeks. All it is I'd take a flash drive. They don't have to print. I know you folks, you need printed stamped copies. I don't. I need a flash drive. So
Okay,
get it in a couple weeks would be great. But if you, whatever I can get, I'll 30 days is a long time for me.
Beth,
All they have to do is
is
put it in
it
their,
possible, Beth?
they're,
we could
they're
ask her
serv-
shorter?
they have their drawings sitting in their office over in Danbury. Their surveying company shares office space with them in the same floor, in the same building in Danbury. It's a question of telling the guy to put the flash drive in and hit transfer the file.
Hey,
So
Beth,
literally what it would take.
Ken?
it sounds like they're being deliberately difficult here. What's the point of this?
Because the clock is ticking. I think this one particular hillside behind Druid, they told me while I was quarantined in Massachusetts for 3 months that it was a lawn ready to go. I came back and saw a weed strewn hill. I think they're dragging their feet because they know the clock is ticking.
Okay, but at the same time, in reference to the hill, the town has given them definite direction.
Right.
Based on our regulations.
Yep.
It's either build a wall or create a 2-to-1 slope, get it surveyed, have a survey specifically state and show that it's a 2-to-1 slope, so it's completed. That's what they have to do.
But they've gotten so far down the process that will not be completed when our clock runs out.
Well, then I can't help that.
I understand that. I understand.
Okay, that's something I can't help you with.
I know. But on the other hand, that slope has been in that condition for a number of years.
But I've never looked at that slope as being a finished slope.
But it hasn't changed.
Because there's still
its-
construction
it's
going
ha-
around.
It has not changed its physical configuration for 8 or 9 years.
I understand what you're saying, Bill, but there's an area of construction that's been going on over there. There's been manipulation of where certain structures are going. There's, I think, 2 more units that have to, or 4 or 5 more units that have to be there.
Yeah, that goes right behind it. But there's never,
Yeah.
been a wall. That wall was allowed to shrink 2 times. The retaining wall that was originally back in that spot
Mhm.
was allowed to shrink from a full wall from one end to the other to a half wall to now it's a third. I don't know. You know, it's funny to talk in lengths of retaining wall in that sense, but. And I think what happened was people
Go ahead.
allowed the units to be shuffled around and didn't look at the effect of the slope. There's nothing wrong. I mean, we want them to move those units around as much as they did. That they were unable to sell the property. We want them out of here as much as they want to be out of here. And if they were forced to keep all 4-plex units, they would not have sold them. So the decision to go to re-subdivide 2 or 3 times, or often it happened, and go from 4-plex units to duplex units was a fine decision. I think in this one instance, something fell through the cracks. The subdivision was fine. We have no question about that. That's fine.
As far as something falling through the cracks, it's, please don't be offended, but my hands, I deal with the grate and the walls. If they choose not to build the wall, then you always have the option to go to meeting the zoning regulations, which is a 2-to-1 slope.
Right? We should.
So
They
in my,
they cannot make a 2-to-1 slope there, right? They can't make a 2-to-1 slope there without raising a wall high enough to make it 2-to-1. That's impossible.
in my mind, that's what I'm waiting to see.
Okay.
That's the criteria that I have to base a decision on. I cannot, I cannot deny someone a building permit because they didn't finish a wall where, I don't feel it's necessary to go through this with the commission, but I'll try to make it real quick. When it's graded and seeded, the slope is stabilized, you're in the middle of building. Okay, so you don't quite know what you're doing over in that section of the world where they're finishing out their building. And now all of a sudden, oops, we're gonna put these 2 units here. Well, okay, so you're gonna be doing more work here. So what are you gonna do? Bill brings the slope to my attention. I would never have mentioned anything about the slope until they were ready to start getting COs in regards to this portion of the project. And then it's gonna be, oops, that doesn't look right to me. Get it surveyed, show me the 2-to-1 slope versus the retaining wall.
Which is why we kept asking them for elevations and they kept bringing us back pictures of boulders and trees. I didn't want a landscape architect picture, I wanted elevations, and they magically couldn't come up with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think through Beth's explanation is then they'll build a structure, they'll spend money on material costs, but they won't get a final CO to be able to sell the property until they either hit an engineered retaining wall or a 2-to-1 slope in that area. I think what Beth is saying, when they're manipulating the area, it's hard to visualize either the 2-to-1's gonna work or where the retaining wall is gonna go, because it's not Beth's job to have the retaining wall in place until she's asking for a sign off with a
On the
CO.
project as a whole.
I don't, well, we're tying things up. I don't understand the concept of the CO for the slope.
No, it's not a CO on a slope. It's completion
No,
of
a
the
CO on
project.
the building, CO on the building, yes.
On the project. I
Right.
have to correct you, John. It's on the project, not the building.
On the
They'll-
unit
they'll
next to
continue
it
to
or the
get the
whole
s-
project?
Remember, this land is community
Oh,
held.
right, yes.
It is not individual building lots, so
Right.
there's a little difference there.
Got it.
The individual buildings will continue to get their COs and they'll continue
Right,
to.
that's correct. Okay, anything else, Commission?
Nope, you're good so far.
No.
Okay, so I'll work on that. If I can get it done in the next 2 weeks, Bill,
Great.
I will do my best to see if I can help you in that regards. When I have a draft put together, I'll share it with the commission. All right, guys?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you, Beth.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate you spending the time and hearing me out. Thank you very much. I
Thank
do
you.
appreciate-
Mr.
I
O'Halloran.
do appreciate it. Thank you.
We're with you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, moving on. Next on our agenda is a work session for Advanced Testing Site Plan Edition 15 Trowbridge. We closed this at our last meeting and we did request Beth for a draft resolution.
Yes, and at this time, we do not have a report from the Wetlands Commission, so
Okay.
we're gonna have to
Oh, we have
take
to
this
wait.
to the 13th of July.
Okay,
The applicant is where?
okay, perfect, thank you. Moving on to new business.
I would put the next party on under new business, which is Attorney Peter Olson, to discuss some areas in Route 6.
Okay.
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening,
Attorney
everybody. How
Olson.
are you all doing? Can you hear
Peter,
me?
you're up.
Okay, good. Thanks you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
So I'm here to talk about the former Stony Hill Inn site. Quite some time since we spent a lot of time with you with the development applications there. With me tonight, I've got Bob Gleason, Rich Mancuso, and I believe 2 different Gary Michaels somewhere in the participant list. But I want to talk for a little bit first, and then I'll have Bob Gleason talk for a little bit. So you've done a good job tonight reaching back in your memory as to how development projects got approved, but I want you to reach back again to the Stony Hill Inn site. It ended up getting divided into 4 parcels of land. One of the parcels was developed for Maplewood, the assisted living facility. One of the parcels in the very back was donated to the town for open space. That was parcel B3, and there's now a practice field on that site. Parcel B2 in the middle was developed as Copper Square with duplex units as well as the townhome buildings. And that's basically all complete at this point. And then we have the front piece, parcel B1, which since it was approved has remained in its undeveloped condition with the inn removed. What has been done is the street trees were put in, the water line was put in, the sidewalk was built, the roadway connecting the Copper Square development through this was put in, And so a lot of the work to implement the site plan was completed. It's just nobody ever built the buildings or the parking lot or the gazebo or any of the other fun stuff that was part of that approval. I'm sure you all see it as you drive by every day. That is just a vacant parking lot that's starting to overgrow. It's time to do something about that. And I'm hopeful the team that we've put together, they've come up with an exciting plan that will, I hope, make that progress happen. There's a big stumbling block, and that really relates to the reasons, the principal reasons why the property's been unsold, though on the market, for the last 7 years. And the reasons are primarily related to the commercial development that was approved as part of the project. There are other reasons as well, both major and minor, but it's the commercial development that has really been the driver of lack of interest. The development as originally approved had 43,000 square feet of commercial development. That included a large restaurant building of over 4,300 square feet in the front left corner of the property, a bank building in the back left, and then retail / office on the first floor of 2 mixed-use buildings, one in the back right, one in the front right. I'd say that each of those has their own challenges. The mixed-use buildings, one of the biggest challenges we've had is that it turns out to be extremely difficult to finance the construction of mixed-use buildings. Banks are not happy about that type of development. The bank building in the back left, I'll talk a little bit about this, but commercial marketplace has changed. Banks 10 years ago were expanding into physical spaces like crazy. They wanted one on every corner. Now, some of them don't even have physical spaces. And a lot of them are, they're switching to leases, they're terminating their ownership of them, and they're not building new ones. And the ones that are getting built, if you think about over at Michael's in Brookfield or Danbury, the Newtown Savings Bank that they built there is a tiny little kiosk. It could have been a Starbucks if it wasn't for queuing issues on that site. And then the restaurant in the front left is extremely large for a restaurant. And maybe 10 years ago, when large restaurants were being built on every corner, that was a feasible thing, but it's not today. So all of that was true 2 years ago. And I could probably have said all that to you 2 years ago and be completely correct about what I was saying. And then everything changed with COVID. The office market dropped out, the bottom dropped out completely. People are still staying at home. Companies that have offices don't see the need to have as much space anymore. So the market on that has completely vanished. The retail market is just being gobbled up by Amazon. The number of, and I'll let Bob talk about the current conditions in Stony Hill, but the number of retail spaces that are really needed in the face of online competition is drastically dropping. So what we end up with is a need to do something on the site, but a need to not have as much commercial development in the project. So let me ask Bob to talk for a little bit before I present the plan that we've come up with. Bob's done quite a bit of market study and frankly, just legwork, looking around to see what the current conditions are, which I think we all know from just living and being in Bethel. Bob.
Hello again, everyone. Am I on?
You are.
Okay. First of all, thanks for taking the time tonight. Just a brief history of my partner, Gary Michael, and Richmond, myself, and the Dolan Plaza and the Grand behind it. You'll find no bigger fans of Bethel and making it greater than us. And, we originally went to our Grand One first apartment building in 2016 with the goal of helping our tenants in the Dolan Plaza. That building was a great success. We followed that with the Grand Two, again with the same goal of helping our tenants in the Dolan Plaza. Well, then COVID happened and our tenants in the Dolan Plaza really suffered, and they continue to suffer. But the apartments are doing fantastic. There's a waiting list. We've looked at this property on Stony Hill for a long time, and the big bugaboo has always been the commercial. There is, in my view, no need for any more commercial. I went there the other day to talk about this property, and I said, well, what, I know the Big Y Plaza has never been filled in its whole history. There's over 5,000 square feet available now. Jay McGordy's building's empty. There's just the medical buildings down the street are empty. But then I said, I'm looking at it the wrong way. I said, if I was a person living here, what is here already? Well, there's a Starbucks, a Dunkin' Donuts, Pete's Sake Deli, 2 Chinese, sushi, jeweler, liquor store, 4 nail salons, Target, anything you would ever want on Stony Hill Road at this site is already right there. There is no need for anything else. And what the grand apartments prove to me in spades is that what we need are people. We need people living there, using this thing and helping our merchants. And, I shared this preliminary plan. I don't know how we show that with them.
I'll show it after you're done talking, Bob.
Yep. But I shared this preliminary plan with our bankers, and they said, Bob, we won't, this commercial building, we don't even want to finance it. There is no need for any more commercial in this spot. Everything's right there. So then we said, well, I think our track record speaks for itself. What is the best thing that's going to fit the vein of what's already approved there and sit on this property? So we looked at the original plan that was approved, and we brought it to John Malone of Malone McBroom. He's a big time guy, and he's their principal. And he said, this is a vital piece of property. I want to be the one in charge. And he's over 5 or 6 iterations. What he came up was this, the plan that you'll see, which has some townhomes, some commercial, a courtyard with a pool and a little gazebo area. The residential's hidden in the back, the bulk of it, and then another residential in the front. And it has a village feel that has already started to exist there very much for the Copper Square people that walk the sidewalks and use that whole thing. So the bottom line is why we're here tonight is we're in contract for the property, but we met with Beth last week after we got this plan because we really wanted to get a feel for how the commission would feel about going forward. I mean, right after we did that, I don't know if you saw this article in the News Times last Friday about the Danbury Mall, but the quote there was, we need to be sure zoning is supportive of whatever may occur at the property in the future to keep it active and viable. That is the history that's what the current situation in the world is right now. And we want to make something that's beautiful. We want to make something that's viable, and we want to bring people to Bethel. That's the bottom line.
Thanks, Bob. So just a little bit more on the Rubino's efforts. They tried a number of different ways to reconfigure the property in the marketing of it. One of the big things that they tried was to try to get a traffic light approved for the entrance there. They hired Malone and McBroom to go talk to OSTA about it, and they were unsuccessful. The state said, no, there's no traffic light warranted. And without a traffic light, a lot of the marketing ability to go to, say, Walgreens or CVS and have a drugstore there, they all refuse to come without a traffic light. And there are other users that way as well. So I just want to be clear that the Rubinos have had this property on the market with multiple real estate brokers for a number of years. They've had a number of interested people that have gotten a long way, I think Beth can tell you, with the town, and have not been able to market it as, as approved, or even with the idea that it might be changed. So let me share my screen, and I think I can just do it. We'll see. I'll take you through the plan a little bit. So if you remember the approved plan, we had a restaurant in this front left corner, bank in the back left corner, a building that went right here in the back right corner, and another building that came parallel here on the right-hand side.
Excuse me, Peter, can we have David bring up the original plan? I think it's easier to compare the two if you're going to start with the original.
Sure, it's underneath the drawing that I'm showing you, but you want me to stop sharing, David?
Yes, I can bring up the original
Can
plan.
you bring up the one that you submitted and the commission members had?
Yep.
Can you do both side by side?
No. Sorry.
Would have been nice.
Yeah.
We're not that literate yet, Bob.
At least I can talk tonight. I couldn't make it.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so we see in yellow, the building on the left is the proposed restaurant. Then there's a bank in the back left.
Right.
And then two mixed-use buildings, one small one in the back and one larger one on the right-hand side of the property. Parking along the street frontage and in front of the buildings. The gazebo with a little bit of a town green in the middle. Do Chung was the planner for this. You may remember Do. And one of the things that we made a very big point of was saying what we're trying to do is generate a town center feel for the Stony Hill district. And that was the intention of this plan. So if you pass it back, David, I'll put the new plan up.
All yours, Attorney Olson.
Thank you. So the original plan had 60 apartments that were approved. The property itself is about 6 acres. This plan has increased the number of residential units to 116. That would work out to about 20 units an acre, slightly less, divided between apartments of 104 apartments and then 12 townhomes. The townhomes are located on the left-hand side of the property to take advantage of the views across to the pond. I think the Copper Square development has made that pond really a pretty spectacular amenity up there. 3 townhome buildings, 4 units each. Those are on the left-hand side of the property. And then the buildings where we had 2 buildings on the original plan, we have 2 buildings here, but we've sort of separated where the split between the buildings is. Whereas originally it was here and we had 2 rectangular buildings. Now the split is here, which pushes the larger building to the back of the site and allows a smaller building in the front. So it essentially will step up towards the back of the property, towards where Copper Square development is. Instead of having flat parking space, parking fields, we have somewhat of a curved design to sort of increase the visual amenity there. And with a clubhouse and a pool in the middle and green space around it, we've been able to increase the green space on the property by a significant amount. And then what we have is this building in the front here, which is about 7,000 or 8,000 square feet that is designed for commercial. And whether that's retail or office, it depends entirely on what users we can get. The reason we've included this here is because, you know, in my practice and experience with the commission, we know the importance of the Route 6 corridor for commercial development. So we didn't think it was appropriate to just get rid of it altogether, even though we'd love to, but to allow for some commercial opportunity to grow. We know the current conditions won't stay the same forever, but any kind of a significant commitment to commercial above that is going to just remain empty and will be a wasted investment for us and will look silly for the town. So the ask for the commission tonight is for your thoughts on 2 big components here. The first is to increase the residential density to 20 units per acre instead of 10 units per acre. That is less than the TOD in downtown, which is 30, but it's more than the 10 that are permitted today. That's number 1. Number 2 is to reduce the commercial requirement for this site that would allow us to build this 8,000 square foot building with the 116 units. I don't really want to focus too much on the formula at this point. We think it's important to keep it general. And that's really the fundamental request. We have a contract with the Rubinos for the purchase of the property, but it has a fundamentally tight due diligence time period. We know we're not going to get an approval, tonight. Just say, go ahead and build it, obviously. But what we're hoping for is a sense from the commission that we're not barking up the wrong tree here, that we can go and safely, exercise that due diligence time period, start designing the project and bring you an application when it's ready that will get approved eventually in substantially this form. So that's the basic of the presentation. Now, there's a legal aspect to it, which is how do we get it approved? And, having done a lot of work with the town and in the town, My thoughts on this are that we can try to amend the underlying Route 6 zoning regulation to work for the development that we're doing. And that's a very feasible way to do it. But there's a lot of moving parts in that underlying regulation. And any tweak that you do is probably going to have ripple effects down the rest of the corridor. The Diocese property is stopped mid-development. The Hollandia property is on the market. The Steiner property on the corner of Benedict is vacant and ready to go with something. There are some parcels that perhaps could be combined to make a larger parcel to try to do it. And so I think that the right way to handle this is to come up with a new tool for the commission. And that tool that I've worked with before with the city of New Haven, and it's also something that happens in the town of Shelton as well as several other communities, is called a planned development district. And essentially the way it works is you set some basic criteria. Everything has to be 5 acres or more. You can have 20 units an acre. You have to have some commercial development. You can't go more than 4 stories in height, just some general criteria. And then you let the applicant present a site plan that fleshes out all the details, which is how many parking spaces, what your setbacks are, your building separation, building coverage, all those little details in the zoning regulations that drive everybody crazy. And when you, the commission, are happy with the site plan, you approve it as essentially a new zoning district that overlays on top of the Route 6 district, so it's only applicable there. But the terms of this new district are defined by the site plan. Now, anytime anybody wants to change that site plan, they have to come back to you to amend it. You have the advantage of this process is that you would have the most discretion you can possibly have in reviewing land use applications, which is a zone map amendment. It's all the discretion in the world you want. You can turn it down for any reason. Obviously, the job of the applicant and the developer is to convince you that they've presented a reasonable plan that works for you. And so that's the legal side of this. I know it's a little confusing and a lot to take in, but I don't want you to get hung up tonight on the process to get to an approval here. We can work on that, over time. What we really want to know is what your thoughts are and whether you're okay with the 20 units an acre and reducing the commercial here to what we're showing here, which is about 8,000 square feet. Bob, did I miss anything?
I think we're good, Peter. I mean, again, I don't want anybody to feel any pressure whatsoever here, but we're making a significant gamble here. And that's all our choosing. I understand that, but we're really asking for, are we on the right highway? And then that's kind of what we're asking for tonight.
Just, there is a statute that allows us to have these pre-application meetings. And the statute specifically says nobody's bound by anything that's said. So you can feel free to speak your minds.
Okay, Peter, I have a question.
Sure.
With the new regulations and everything have to be redrawn. Where are you going with affordable housing with this project?
Well, the Route 6 zone currently requires 20% of the units to be affordable at 80% of median income. And we would definitely keep that requirement in whatever we did.
Peter, Route 6 is 10%, 80 and 10.
Oh, 10.
Yes, that's why.
Like it's 1080 and 1060.
Yeah.
I would like to see the 20.
TOD is 20 at 80.
I mean, we can talk about the right way to do that. Obviously, we'd prefer to have them all at 80%, 20% and 80%. But that's a detail, I think.
Well, I was thinking I would like to see it similar to the TOD, where it would be the 20% would be affordable, which I think is it's very needed right now in this climate.
Yep.
The other thing, is there anything else right there that's 4-story? And that
Well, no, the Route 6 zone, I believe, allows 4-story buildings.
That's
But
correct.
but I don't think we've done that.
Right. The only thing I'd say is that the townhomes on the Copper Square property. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. I'm not sure if that's me or somebody else, but
I don't know.
It's you.
I fixed it.
those are, quite tall buildings.
Yes, I think the fire department would love to know your feelings about buying them a fire truck.
Yeah. And so we don't think that the building will appear out of scale with the Copper Square buildings because they
If
are.
They do, the Copper
Very-
Square do appear large, yeah.
Yeah.
can I just interject for a minute, Peter? If you look at the original footprint of the original site plan,
Okay.
that building, I'm pointing with my finger, that's real helpful.
That was going to be four, the one in the back, right?
Actually, 4 stories.
Yeah, one of them was going to be 4 stories.
Correct.
The one in the back, I believe.
The one on the side.
Right, yeah, right, I remember, with the,
Yeah.
yeah, because there was offices and 2 stories up above.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So
Oh,
this plan shows a smaller 3-story building in the
Right.
front,
That's the 24 units, yes,
24 units, and then a 4-story building taller in the back.
the 80 units, right.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Can
yeah,
I, can I,
sure, go
can
right
I say
ahead,
something?
please.
So attorney, I don't know that it's fair, especially for commissioners that weren't on the commission back then, to sell it as just this development.
Mm.
When we did a Route 6 zone change and we allowed residential out there, we had a lot of blowback from the single-family home development all around Stony Hill. So when we did a zone change, you have to talk about history and the whole thing. We increased density out in Route 6. When we changed the zone, we said, okay, as long as from the center line, we go 280 feet in and we make sure there's a commercial component there, we'll let the density go wild behind it. And that's what happened. The Rubinos sold the property and they sold the profitable part or the easy sell first, and we were left with the second part. But as a commission, when we were sold this zone change, okay, and we all bought into it, we were looking at the whole project. So there was high density in the back and there was mixed density in the front. And for all of us old Bethel people, we thought it was important to have commercial along Route 6. So the way you sold the 6 or 7 acres here, I think it's fair to say there was a bigger picture that the commissioner was looking at. Is that fair?
Sure, absolutely. Which is why when I started, I went through the whole history of the whole property, from Maplewood to the open space to whatever. I do want to correct you on one thing, though. The density was not increased. The Route 6 zone always allowed 10 units an acre. The difficulty was with the original regulation, it only allowed in certain places residential to be above commercial.
Right.
So the trade-off that allowed the development to proceed was to allow residential on the first floor. But the density was always the same. It was always 10 units an acre. The density for the whole property, when you count B1 and B2, just those 2, not Maplewood, that was separate, not the open space. The open space may have counted, but the total density of Copper Square plus the units approved on the front worked out to be like 7.8 units per acre. So it was even less than the 10 units that were already allowed. We didn't increase density. We just shifted.
Yeah, we increased density, but we allowed residential in that zone on the ground floor, meaning Copper Square behind it, right?
That was the change.
Right, that was the big change. So it was a transition from single family homes to condominium living to apartment style with a commercial component. And for the old Bethel guys on the commission, I think the sale was that it was still going to maintain commercial for the visual look going down the road.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that was the intention in 2012. I guess the whole reason we're here tonight and the whole reason we're making this presentation is to say it's 7 years later and it hasn't worked. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to just say that it has to be that forever until it expires and nobody ever builds anything?
Well, and that's fair, but you mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned there was some big, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, we're just trying to do something to bring this, bring this project so it's not an abandoned site, basically.
Okay, when your presentation started, the biggest thing that I heard you say is there were some big problems with the development and the sale of it. And don't you think that price was like one of the biggest problems when they're trying to market this particular portion of the project?
I don't have any personal knowledge of the pricing.
John, Bob Gleason here. I'll just step in on that. The price, if you look at, that was 40,000 square feet of retail that they were proposing then. There is no need for 40,000, and there was never any need for 40,000 square feet. You had a big Y across the street that had 4 vacancies at the time. We have the Dome Plaza. There's tons of empty space there. There wasn't a bank on the planet that would finance 40,000 square feet of retail. As I said, when we approached, Union Savings about this, they said 2 things. Number one, we don't want to finance that 8,000 square feet because what are you going to put in there? I can't think of anything. That's what our guy said. Secondly, if you build residential over retail, they totally discount the retail as a 0 in your pro forma, an absolute 0. So the reason really why in my opinion, why it never sold, it was a bad plan to start with, meaning there was no need for what was proposed in any way, shape, or form. The only thing that's viable in my mind right now is a pharmacy, and every pharmacy chain has been approached on this property, and it needs a light to get in there or they're not going to buy it. So that has totally X'd that out. So what we're frankly talking about is if we build this commercial building, we're going to build a real pretty building because that's what we're going to do. And we're going to steal a tenant from one of the spaces across the street or down. We're going to hurt somebody else. We're going to hurt another landlord. And that's really what I feel.
So John,
Can
I don't have any personal knowledge of how it was priced. I didn't track that. I wasn't involved in it. The real estate transaction side, because I ended up having conflicts of interest, I had to refer out to somebody else. So
Well,
maybe
okay,
there's
all right.
other people who know more than me about how the Rubinos were pricing it and what effect that had on the market.
All right.
But-
There's always the whispers on the street, and then
Yeah.
there's the realistic, the price tag, and the price tag was considerably higher than what the price tag is today. But Bob, respectfully, I want to go back to they had no business doing 40,000 square feet of commercial. The Planning and Zoning Commission of any town accepts an application, lets the engineers agree upon what works and what doesn't for a site, and as long as it fits the zoning,
Yeah.
the public sector decides what works for it, that's financially, beneficial for the applicant or not us. The
Right.
Rubinos and their team is who came to us 8 years ago and said, here's the project that we believe in.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I totally agree with you. But what I guess what I'm trying
I agree with you too, John, and I was part of
John,
that
the plan that
I know
they,
you were right, but you can't ask the commission to say, "Oh, that was a terrible idea,"
No,
when
no.
the applicant spent lots of money to come in with a project.
Yeah,
no,
well, Bob is telling you it's a terrible idea, and I have to say to Bob, hey, Bob, back off on that for a second.
Yeah, well,
At
your
the
check's clear,
time-
Peter.
At the time,
That's a good idea.
we believed that that was an appropriate project that would work.
Exactly.
Now, Bob has the advantage of 7 years of hindsight. And Bob can also say to me, hey, Peter, you were an idiot to think that that might work at that time, which is a reasonable criticism. It turns out Bob would be right, that it didn't work and they weren't able to find the right developer for it to develop it. And so what we're trying to say is, despite best intentions in 2013, when we presented a project we thought would work, we were all wrong. And we're sorry that now the property's been sitting there for 7 years. The Rubinos are really sorry. They really wish it had sold back then. And now what we've got to do is figure out what we're going to do going forward. And, if the answer is we're stuck with what's approved in 2013, Bob's going to say, okay, see you later. And that'll be the end of it. And the Rubinos will, keep trying to do something. Something should be done, I think, to recognize current market conditions, to bring this property to 2021. We think this is something that could work today.
Gotcha. Well, so I think we're halfway there. And before I give my opinion, I'm really excited to hear what the other commissioners' opinion on what Route 6 should look like. So I'm going to put my little microphone on mute. Thank you.
John, I have to agree with you. over these years, everything has changed in terms of business. And you're right, Big Y Complex has open space up there and it's been open for quite a while. We got a bank, we have a bank that closed up there. I guess my only question would be, based on the number of units, I'm going to assume there are multiple bedroom units. I'm looking at, this could dump 232 cars onto Route 6, is that
Thank you.
correct?
Yes.
Well, so we proposed 220 to 230 parking spaces to accommodate 116 units. Bob, is this a mixture of 1 and 2 bedrooms, or is it all 2 bedrooms?
It'll be 1, 2s, and 3s. It's very similar to what the Grand is. 1, 2,
Okay.
2 and a den. The unit mix that we have now is excellent. I don't know if it all fit exactly in there, but one of our hallmarks is people desire bigger units. So, you know, that's what we're going to try to give them. But I mean, as opposed to a retail center, I mean, there'll be, I believe, less traffic onto Route 6.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. The approval is for far more traffic. Now, we will have to have the state amend its OSTA permit to reflect the change, but the extra 40 odd units is more than a fair trade for the 30,000 feet of commercial.
Have you done any studies for traffic based on these units?
No, we haven't done our engineering or our traffic, but we have engaged Malone and McBroom. That's who prepared this plan. Malone and McBroom was also the traffic engineer on the original approval.
Right, I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Other commission members, do you have comments?
I have a comment. I could see that 43,000 isn't going to work, but I can't see that it needs to drop all the way down to 7 or 8. I think, you know, I agree with John in his comments that we're looking for commercial, looking at it as you drive up and down Route 6. You have to see the commercial right at the beginning. And if we don't do that, then we wasted our time on the Route 6 study. Sure, times changed, everything has changed, but we still need more than 7,000 square feet of commercial out there on that piece of property in order to increase, you know, the residential to the amount that we increased it to. We doubled the residential and we come down almost 36,000 square feet the other way around. So I see, I would agree to a more of a compromise, more of an even split. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bob. Commission members, any comments?
Yeah, Pat. I think the change of the times here, we need to be flexible, as the builders clearly needs to be flexible for them. And I also agree with Bob and John. I think that that shrinkage of the commercial area is pretty small compared to what was proposed before. I think some compromise could be in order here. A real nice landscape plan would really help out here. But I think all the parties need to be flexible, and I think we need to take a cue from the builders who know what's really going on out there. That's all.
I unmuted myself again. Sorry, guys. So, but let me just, maybe, I just want to add something, Pat. So, you know, if you go to Reading, Connecticut, okay, it's a bedroom community. All they have is bedrooms, right? So you go to charming Bethel, we have a railroad station downtown that really works downtown and is an asset to Bethel downtown. If you go out to Stony Hill, we have a huge asset. We have exit 8 and we have exit 9, okay? We could never, ever, ever get a state highway with 2 on-ramps and off ramps to I-84 and never expect commercial to work there, okay? I'm with Bob. I'm all about a compromise. I know market trends change, but we still have to have visual appearance that there's commercial there.
Right, something.
A long time ago, somebody told me it's all about traffic count, okay? The more traffic you get on a highway, then the commercial will come. The commercial will come, okay? But there was a pandemic, I get that. The price tag, to me, was a deterrent for an applicant to come in and develop it, okay? So I think if we come to some kind of compromise, I think it certainly could work, okay? But I don't think that I want to belong to a town that's just a bedroom community. We need the visual look of commercial, okay?
Your point, John, between 8 and 9, I think is a great point. And I've always thought that is a draw. And yeah, and we've just been through COVID. We're not totally finished yet, but I think the time will come when something else should be there as well. I agree with you totally.
Yeah, Peter, you mentioned at the beginning that you wanted this to be a village, and I think the difference between the location and where the Grand is that, the Grand actually is in a village. This is in a very, commercial area. And, what I'm seeing in this very preliminary plan is not walkable, which would be a concern. If you're selling the amenities of the community and that, that village-like feel, I don't see where that's in this plan, and having more retail, commercial, whatever it is in the space could alleviate that. Could make it more like a true village, which I think would be appealing to buyers also. But we're not in the business of writing your business plans for you, as you'd mentioned. But that's my main concern. If the sell is the amenities of everything around it, how do we connect people to that without having to get them into a car? And that could be solved on site.
So obviously it's a very preliminary plan. It doesn't have everything you'd expect out of a fully blown plan. But when I was talking about a village, what I was referring to is the whole Stony Hill corners there, and contributing to that. I will point out that the sidewalk has been installed that runs all the way from Maplewood to the traffic light at Old Hollyville. And the street trees are all in too, and they're huge. I mean, they've been growing for 7 years. So that sidewalk is already there, and that already makes it walkable. Now,
it does go to Big Y, doesn't it?
What?
It does go down to Big Y, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know what it does on the other side. It goes to the corner.
No, not quite, Kitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can cross the street there and go to Big Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then whatever we do internally in the site, we'll connect to that. I don't think that's really an issue.
Peter, you said this significantly increased green space, but by how much?
I don't know. I was just visually looking at it. The old plan to me has a lot more parking in the area in front of the buildings. That's, with the clubhouse and the pool, converting that, a lot of that space around there to green space.
Peter, there can also be a pocket park in the front right corner there that we can redo that.
Over here.
In the front right corner.
Right. That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got actually a little bit more green space.
Yeah, I mean, all that said, I think it's a very smart reaction to the market, and giving people what they want, and definitely see that point. So that's all for me.
Thanks, Rob. Peter, what are you looking for from us tonight?
Approved. Go build.
Gut check.
Well, that's not going to happen.
I mean, one of the problems is I don't think we can really have a horse trading session of any kind where I say, well, what about 9,000 feet of commercial? And you say, no, we want 22, and we go back and forth. And, but sort of a general idea of what kind of a number on commercial would satisfy the intention to have commercial along Route 6. I think, Bob said, well, you doubled the amount of residential, it's slightly less than that. that maybe we should have a corresponding reduction in commercial. That suggests to me, Bob might be okay with 20,000 feet of commercial. That's probably more than we can justify doing, but having that in mind may give us some things to think about. I think the other question I would have is the willingness of the commission to consider, I'll call them alternative types of commercial as counting towards it. So for example, if I had a unit that had 1,000 feet on the ground floor that was commercial space and 1,000 feet up above that was living space, a live work unit, that would count as one of our apartments, but also towards the commercial. And we call that live workspace. And it's something that you have a professional can do that, or an artist have a studio downstairs. That type of thing can alleviate the negatives of having to build the commercial, right? If you did 4 of those units, that's 4,000 feet more of commercial. And that assists a great deal in the look and feel of the development along Route 6, that it looks like commercial as you go along.
Peter, we just had the discussion on financing of these.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
And Bob is saying that his bank doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's like, with all due respect to everybody, I mean, we don't have to buy this piece of property. And I'm not a new person in town. I'm very aware of what's going on in the market. And, I to have 20,000 square feet of commercial space sitting there, it just couldn't, it would hurt the whole thing at this point. If there was a demand for it, I'd love to build it. Absolutely love to build it. I mean, I also would point out that Randy Salvatore that, did the Copper Square in the back, he had the first right of refusal on this. He said, no, he doesn't want to do it in any way, shape or form. So he has left the area. So I don't want to go into something nervous and frankly petrified, of having a giant commercial component that I'm responsible for that just won't work. I'd rather just say no to the project. And I know that's not your business in any way, shape or form. And I know a lot of work went into this 10 years ago, but everything's changed in the last 10 years, everything. And, if the mall on the front page of the News Times is talking about, we got to reinvent ourselves and talk about putting residential in there. I mean, that's the future now. I mean, look at poor New York City. What's going to happen there? I mean, well, that's office space and all that stuff. And I think there is such a tremendous commercial component already there within one block of this space. I don't want to steal from those people. I just don't. And that's really my sincere feeling. We are good citizens of the town. This is not a greedy proposal. It's not all that. We really, and I think our track record speaks to this, always try to do what's best, classiest, and works. And that's really where we're coming from here.
Hey, Bob, you mentioned the mall, right? And markets and history and how things change. So let's talk about malls, because you can't compare the mall and the inability to rent mall space. It's a different component. Matter of fact, trends say the malls are empty because the department stores in the malls want to have a freestanding commercial piece of property because they want their audience to be captive. They don't want their audience to walk down an air-conditioned hallway and be able to compare prices for the next 2 hours on a pair of blue jeans, right? So you can't compare what's happening at the mall with what the vision of the town of Bethel is for Route 6. Is that fair?
I would not compare the mall to Route 6. I would compare Route 6 to the Big Y Plaza. I would compare Route 6 to the Dolan Plaza. And I just see how our tendency has changed over the last 17 years that we've owned the plaza now. We've gone from 1 eatery to 5 and now 6. And there's a reason for that, because Amazon took all the other little guys out. And those eateries.
Well, wait, but there's a bigger reason. The bigger reason is we brought residential downtown and density to be able to support the Main Street Bethel. That was the goal for 20 years with the commission.
The tendency had changed before we even built the first Grand. The tendency the mix had changed,
But we were working on it well before the Grand, which was a wonderful addition to
understand.
downtown Bethel, but we had the vision, if
Yeah.
you bring the people down, they will shop. And it's exactly what's happening down there. And that's why you could eat in 5 different storefronts in your shopping center.
Which in my opinion is not the best balance for that shopping center, but that's all we have available as
The
tenants.
private marketer decides that.
I know, and the private market is kind of deciding what's the best for this space we're talking about. That's our point.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's my only point. I mean, we're all talking about millions and millions of dollars here, and a 20,000 square foot building I mean, that could be a $4 million building that could just sit there. I mean, that just scares the heck out of me. I mean, it really does.
Well, and we're not going to probably decide square footage and
Right.
have an approval tonight, but but what you're doing is you're looking for consensus of the commission.
Yeah.
And unless Peter's sharing his screen and has another conceptual drawing with more commercial on Route 6,
Yeah.
when I'm at windshield level,
Yeah.
I think you're hearing from the commission that, hey, we're willing to change with the markets, right? But
Yeah.
you've got to give us the view of Route 6. Maybe Mr. Legnard's 20,000 square foot scared you, but maybe the right number is 3 buildings along Route 6 with a total of 15,000 with apartments above it. So maybe I'm not hung on the apartment number count.
Right.
I'm more hung on the visual look of Route 6.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't hear all the commission say that, but when I drive down Route 6, I think I should see some nice lit signs that says, I'm in business to sell you something on a state highway.
Yep. Well, and also I think, John, that quote that I started with in the News Times, what Peter was talking about is we want each one of these pieces that's left on Route 6 is different. And you don't have to go into the same box or the same thing.
Right.
And what we were hoping for here is, okay, we want the board not to be locked into square footages or number counts or that, but to have a discussion like we're having now, so that, there's discretion based on, so that another piece doesn't sit there like this for a long period of time. It's not just price alone that kept it at that. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what about if the 3 buildings that were closest to Route 6, it looks like it's a scale 40 scale. So the 3 buildings that are closest to the center line of Route 6, if they had a commercial component on the first floor, and I don't care I care what the building looks like, but I wouldn't care what the second or floor look. And obviously that would only be 2 floors along Route 6 because you don't want to hide the rest of it, right?
Yeah, I guess you're up for something different that we had. Well, the way I'm hearing this is you're up for something different than what's approved, allowed now. But what this doesn't fit your eye at this point. You'd like to see more commercial in some way, shape, or form.
In some way, shape, or form, right? Listen, I am in favor of always giving everybody the tools to make it work, right? So I got it. You need more units in the back. You need 4 stories. I think it's important for the commission to know that big building in the back, the original approved project was commercial along on the first floor of that whole building. So that's where the 40,000 square feet came from. So instead of having commercial back there where you can't see it from Route 6, I'm okay with that because that's not the look of Route 6, right? So you're gonna gain residential units back there, but somehow you got to fit where they're facing Route 6 commercial. And I love how they're up front and the parking could be in the back of that commercial space. Does that make sense?
Need the other commission members to pipe in on his discussion, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Peter,
Penny
So
would like to speak.
I just need to say that my computer and my internet is just coming in and out so badly that I'm only hearing like every other word. So I'm going to jump out, but I do want to add that I agree with everything that has been said. And I know that commercial real estate right now, that there is a lot of availability. And yet at the same time, I think there needs to be some more in here, but I'm looking forward to reading the minutes and hearing the rest of meeting. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Penny.
And
Thanks, Ben.
Is there anyone that can talk to the planned development district device that that Peter mentioned? Beth, I don't know if that's you or anyone on the board. I'm not very familiar with that.
I do have a copy of Shelton's regulations pertaining to that. I do think that in this instance, if this were to be discussed further and applied possibly to this area, that I would like to seek some see more examples. I know that Peter, you mentioned it was used in the city of Shelton and New Haven.
Yeah, New Haven.
Right. Again, it's just the term of city that I find a little, you know, to me, it's looking at bigger buildings, smaller lots, higher density, things of that nature. I would like to see if it's being used in other smaller areas of towns and things of that nature, or is it just in these two areas in Connecticut? In regards to that also, as Peter explained it, and he has explained it to me 2 or 3 times, and like I did mention to him, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, is to do a map amendment with a site plan and treat it as strictly the Planning and Zoning Commission having all the discretion in the world to approve or deny is difficult for me to understand and to, because I always base, when you say site plan, you are basing it on regulation. So it is a concept. I'm still trying to understand it better. I will be also discussing it with Attorney Andrus, and maybe Chuck can help also in reviewing it, if you chose to go that route. I like the concept, don't get me wrong. The idea of treating some of these bigger parcels on Route 6 as an individual little, their own zone is very appealing to a degree, because look at how many times we fiddled with the zoning regulations in order to make a project work. Peter is very much part of this because he was one of the members at the time that we looked at our regs on Route 6 and tried to do something that would increase development in our larger acreage zones. And now he's back telling us, well, in this instance, it's not working, but I have another idea.
One more time.
One thing I do want to mention to you guys, to all of you, is you have to remember, you've all been around for the last 20 years and seen the development that has happened out in the Route 6 area and how far we've come. But again, 20 years before you saw the development out on Route 6 sat there stagnant.
Nothing.
So in looking at this proposal or anything else that will be coming in, and I will tell you there are other proposals that will come in along the lines, you've always had the foresight to make changes when you felt they needed to be made. If you remember, you didn't want big box stores. Well, then we got Target. You didn't want strip malls. You didn't want drive-through.
Drive-throughs.
Yeah, but they're inside and they're doing well, aren't they?
Fast food, you didn't
We
want
got Starbucks.
drive-throughs, but you came to a consensus as a group to make changes as you saw them being fit. I think overall what I've gotten from some of you individually and as a whole, that your biggest obstacle in entertaining this kind of a project is the lack of commercial aspect with it. To the degree that you would like to see. I think there's several different ways you could address it. One thing I wanted to ask Peter or Bob, when you're talking about an 8,000 square foot building, are you talking 2 floors or 1 floor of commercial? Is
That
it
is 2
8,000 or is it 4,000?
That's 2 floors.
Okay, so it's a 4,000 square foot. You're talking about 4,000
Right.
square feet, right?
Yes.
Footprint.
Footprint, yes.
Okay. So, you know, in thinking along that, you think of what's going on Route 6 now. You have a proposed office building that was supposed to be built over by the farms, whatever it used to call. It's never been done. But as far as the smaller Pete's Deli, Subway, the little shopping area where Prime Pub is, the laundromat, things like that, I do believe there is still a need for a smaller version of retail that needs to be accomplished along Route 6, the service industry wise. Yes, I understand what you're saying about a stoplight for a CVS or something of that nature to go in, and that's what I want to see out there, but we don't have one. But I do believe that there's an opportunity there, and it's an opportunity that you guys are most familiar with, doing smaller versions of retail or commercial establishment. You've worked very well with your tenants down in Dolan Plaza. You have a long history with some of them. And at the same time, because of your experience, your years of experience, you've been able to attract good tenants and take care of them during COVID. I don't want to see that overcome the possibilities of what you could do out in Route 6 pertaining to commercial development. I think that dealing with the front portion, I'm not going to say a number, but I do believe on both sides of the entryway, maybe that could be looked at as your possible commercial component.
On the other side.
Peter, I would like to clear up. I didn't mean you had to go to 20,000 square feet, split it in half. But
I wasn't trying to pin you down. I was just sort of
Yeah.
throwing out concepts.
no, I'm just
Bobby was trying to pin you down.
doing a good graphic of 20 Street at 7.
Correct.
Oh, I mean, we're here to try and make this work so that it comes out a good project.
Absolutely.
Hey, Beth,
Yes.
I think with some minor tinkering down on the front there, I think, and I like that idea with the apartments above. I think some tinkering there could really be beneficial. I have no problem with even more units in the back if that's what they need to get that front to look right.
Thank you, Ken.
Linda, any comments?
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea of retail stores, they're all evolving now. They're either downsizing or going out of business or changing their model. I don't think that a bunch of little retail stores is going to draw the traffic from those two exits off of the highway, which, as John pointed out, I mean, we should be, taking advantage of that. But the little retail stores are just going to be serving the local people, which is nothing wrong with that. But if the idea is to try to draw people off of 84, you've got to plan on something big, or I'm in favor of just going with the lesser retail that is just going to serve the local public.
Okay, when you say lesser retail, Linda, you're talking about the smaller version, not the 10,000 square foot store or 13,000 where a CVS or Walgreens.
I'm saying I would love to have something like that there.
But we're saying we all would love to have something like
Right.
that there.
But if
At
that's
this
not
point-
possible,
Right.
then I'm saying go with just a small footprint of retail on the bottom. And it's going to be serving like maybe a corner deli to service, the people that are going to be living in that area, that kind of thing. But
You're talking about the small service industry.
Right,
Or what we already
right.
have existing out in the Route 6 area.
yeah, but that's not going
Well-
to draw people off of the highway.
I don't think we're looking to draw people off
Yeah.
of the highway.
Yeah, I think my comment about exit 8 and exit 9 made Linda go that way. And all I meant, Linda, is it's a state highway that runs parallel to an interstate, and we can never get that back. So if we want the visual look of commercial, however commercial would look, then we need to make sure that we maintain that. I didn't think that everybody was going to get off exit 8 because Costco was in the middle. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay. 20, 30 years ago, we could have accomplished it, but definitely not
that's
now.
right. That's right.
Thank you, Linda. Rob Stoll, any comments?
Often find myself agreeing with John Lennon,
Oh, man, they all do that.
but sometimes it does not. I think I'm a little concerned about the 4-story building.
Oh.
And that massiveness of it versus what's at Copper Square, which I believe, if my memory is right, are all 3-story buildings that are next to that. There could be some public comments about that. But yeah, I think if I had known when I first saw the revised drawing, I didn't really even know that a previous version had existed until tonight, and we saw that. So it kind of threw me for a loop when I saw that. So I'd still want to wait and see what maybe some compromise positions could be to add some commercial again up front on that. I think that's all where I am right now.
Rob, just an FYI, when we did the Route 6 study, we discussed 4-story buildings. We didn't get a lot of pushback on it.
Okay.
And they're currently in our regulation, so that's a done deal.
And one was approved for the site previously.
Right.
That was.
How long
And
ago was
Maplewoods is 4 stories. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't want to place too much emphasis on the aspects of the 2013 plan that we do like.
Gotcha, Peter.
Funny.
Attorneys usually aren't funny. That was good.
No, usually not.
Peter has his moments, you know.
You can always paint the top floor camouflage.
So Pat, I think they're all looking for a consensus of what the commission's vision out in Route 6 is, and they're going to base their contract that they're probably in the middle of a purchase on if they like the opinion of the commission or they don't.
That's correct.
Beth, do you have any comment to that?
Well, I mean, if I can help the commission just come to the consensus, I think the consensus is that let's put it this way, that they're not adverse to the increase in residential that is proposed for the site, but they do have concerns about the commercial component, which I think was made clear in our initial meeting too. I think that they are open to some compromise. As far as what that number is, I would tell you, I think that the goal of the commission is they offered you several varieties of how to attain that. That they would prefer to see some type of commercial component along the front of Route 6. They had a couple of offerings for that. Again, dealing with what you proposed a 4,000 square foot footprint that could possibly be whittled down to 2,000 square feet. But again, if it's located along like a small little beautiful strip, like you have done with the Grand, using creative architecture and stuff, you can either do one on either side of the draw to go into the main post with a workspace, work live, things of that nature. But I think that what they're looking for is not to lose the feel of commercial along the Route 6 road itself. I think they're almost looking for the creation of the village type of thing that we have done with TOD, for example. If we were to do Big Y today, Big Y would not look the way it is now. Big Y and the actual strip with it would be located in the front along Stony Hill Road, and everything would be located in the back. As far as their tenancy and things like that, yes, they are open. Again, you're talking about the same mentality as going to a mall. The price is astronomical to do rentals in these type of facilities. Whereas you have those smaller facilities, I think you get good quality tenants. But as far as that number, like Bob said, I agree. You dismiss the 20,000. But
he said 20 because he really meant 17.
Yeah. But the commission is,
18 and a half.
the commission's looking for a certain feel along Route 6. And I think that's trying to put everybody into a consensus. And please, if you have, anybody has anything to add, please do.
I think well said, Beth.
Yes, sir.
It's
Okay.
and the
Well,
feel,
We've
not
got
the
some stuff
number.
to do. We've got some stuff to talk about, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right. Thank you all very much.
Hopefully we'll see you again. Have a
Thank
good-
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Maybe not.
Moving on, planning and zoning official report. Beth, you have it down as discussion of changes in CGS 8-2 zoning.
yes, the only thing I want to mention in relation to that, we have two, I don't know, one bill is 295 pages dealing with marijuana
Right.
and 85 pages dealing with zoning. So I went ahead and did this. I hope it's all right with all of you. I put in a request to the Board of Selectmen to have Attorney Chuck Andrus help us with dealing with some of these regulations as they would affect us legally based on what the regulations we have. Or in other words, the marijuana regulation, we've got the tightest regulation in the state that says Bethel will never see marijuana. And he needs to go look at that and see if that has standing with the state statute. If it doesn't, then we're gonna have to start all over again and redo our regs. Or somebody can come in and say, hey, let's propose an amendment. And that's basically what I would say is, hey, look, if you wanna sell marijuana in the town of Bethel, propose an amendment. That's just an example, but there's other components. It's very complicated and it would be very helpful if Chuck was able to help us along the way. So that was number one.
Okay.
We'll get into that and once all these lawyers get a consolidation of what the state statutes have become, I'll forward them to you and we'll have further discussions on that. I just lost my train of thought. There was something else. The town meeting on the Shelley Road purchase is June 29th in the GP room at 7 p.m. And I hope that you can all attend. That's next Tuesday. And I would tell you that the Bethel Land Trust, and there's a lot of great, good civic organizations here in town that are really promoting this. And hopefully, once we get through this, it'll be a start of further positive open space adventures that we will be having very soon.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's what
Thank
keeps
you.
me going. It's about the only thing that keeps me going at this point. There's a couple of things I have to accomplish. And we'll see if I can pull them off.
Thank you.
And that's all I have for tonight, Pat. For no items on your agenda, look at how long we've gone.
Yeah.
I thought it was a wonderful conversation, and that's how the commission is supposed to work.
It was fabulous, and this was a great opportunity for all of you to participate. And I thank you all. It was good.
And I think it's a good compromise for a development to work out in Route 6. I don't think we said yes or no. I thought we gave them good food for thought on
Yes.
how.
Could we possibly make a copy of this meeting so Penny can hear what she missed?
Oh, she'll be
It's
able to,
recorded.
it's recorded and it's available on the YouTube channel at the town hall website.
I tried one of them before and couldn't.
Well, it should be, they upload them about a week after we do the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I have. But I see that we do have public here.
Public?
I had a question. When you all were talking with Bob Gleason, I was wondering about the pool and whether the tenants of Copper Square would be able to use the pool.
Oh,
And then as my mind was wandering, I was thinking, okay, well, Newtown has the sports authority or whatever that is. And Brookfield has the Y and Danbury has a Y. And I was thinking for your commercial space, maybe some kind of a pool would be a viable option. So anyway, that's just a thought I was having as I listened.
Copper Square has a pool.
Oh, okay, never mind then. I knew they had a pond.
They got a pool behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, BJ. All right, if there's nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye, opposed, abstention, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Convoy.
Have a good night.